Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we have just wrapped up Week 14 for the San Francisco 49ers. They get the win 38-13 over the Chicago Bears in what was the most dominant performance we have seen by this Niners roster in 2024 this season. It was a stomping from the very beginning. At a certain point, they had a 24-0 lead. It was incredible. Brock Purdy was awesome. Isaac Guerendo, before he got injured, was having a great game. George Kittle's out there setting records still. There's so many great things to discuss about this one. It feels like San Francisco, despite playing a pretty bad team in the Bears, they won 4 games so far this year. They've now lost 7 games in a row. San Francisco snaps their 3-game losing streak, and it kind of felt like they found their mojo. It felt like, okay, this is what San Francisco 49er football is supposed to look like, and for the most part, this was a relaxing, sit back, you can go get yourself a drink and not have to come back and worry what the heck was going to happen by the time you left your couch and got to the fridge and came back. This was a easy Sunday afternoon game for the San Francisco 49ers. That's the good news. The bad news is Isaac Guerendo got injured. They think he has a foot sprain. Not sure if it's going to be a long-term injury, but we already know Christian McCaffrey, he's already out for the rest of the year. Jordan Mason's already out for at least until the playoffs, if this team can make the playoffs. Now Isaac Guerendo, from what Kyle Shanahan said, has a foot sprain, but he'll get x-rays tomorrow to hopefully see how severe it is. The other bad news is the Arizona Cardinals, those freaking birds out there, cannot knock down the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks win. They are still in first place in the NFC West. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams had a slobber knocker of a game out there at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, in Inglewood. It was, 42-44? The final score was crazy. Josh Allen had 6 touchdowns. If you're playing fantasy football, he's your quarterback. You are elated that he's on your team. He was incredible today. But unfortunately, for as bad as San Francisco lost to the Bills, the Los Angeles Rams found a way to eke out a victory over that team in what seems to be the best team in the AFC this year. The Rams won. The Rams are firmly in the contention for the NFC West. They're ahead of San Francisco, and it sets up a pivotal Thursday night football matchup this Thursday between the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams at Levi Stadium on the short week. And honestly, if it takes pressure, if it takes win or go home for this Niners team to finally kick it into gear, then so be it. But let's focus on this game for a second, because Brock Purdy was absolutely incredible in this game. That's the main takeaway for me. Looking at the stats for San Francisco, obviously stats aren't everything. Sometimes stats can lie to you. One person, a very wise person, once told me, stats are for losers, just get the win. And I would agree for the most part, but Brock Purdy was money in this one for San Francisco, starting from the very first drive. I don't know about you, but whenever San Francisco gets the football to begin games, I'm just like, oh God, here we go. It's already not in our favor. San Francisco and Brock Purdy said that doesn't matter at all today. On the very first drive of the game, they go 5 plays, 70 yards. All those yards go to Brock Purdy's box score. He's 4 for 4 on the drive, 4 for 4, 70 yards, and caps it off with a touchdown to Jauan Jennings. It was like a hot knife going through butter in that Bears defense that walked into today with the number 5 passing defense, depending on who you and what stats you use. If you go to PFF, they have the number 8 defense overall in the entire league. San Francisco put up nearly 40 points against them. Brock Purdy finished 20 for 25 on the day, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of 145.5. That quarterback rating is his highest of the season. And we talked about coming into this week that, okay, the Niners offense really hasn't gotten into gear. How are they going to look? No CMC, no Jordan Mason, no Trent Williams. Well, funny enough, San Francisco, without their 3 best players this year offensively, not named George Kittle and Jauan Jennings, looked pretty great. They again 38 points. They scored 24 in the first half. Their defense pitched a shutout in the first half, and they got their first win since 2020 when Trent Williams and Nick Bosa do not play. 2024 is an enigma to all of us. I don't know what's happening. I thought this game was going to be 24-23. San Francisco wins, and they score 38 points. The Bears that fired their head coach and promoted their passing game coordinator to the offensive coordinator position, then once they fired Eberflus, their head coach, promoted that same person to the head coach. I thought, well, you never know what could happen. Teams fire head coaches all the time. And somehow the team's like, we're going to win for our brother. We're going to win for our guy. And sometimes that can make whoever it may be. Last year was Antonio Pierce. They can get head coaching jobs and stay head coaches. That was not the case this Sunday for the Bears. I think his name is Thomas Brown. It was a terrible performance from the beginning to the end. The Bears, I know, scored almost 2 touchdowns in this game, but it was just terrible. Like, the Bears look gross. The Bears look like the Panthers last year. They're broken. They really don't know what's going on. They don't play cohesive football. Just a bad performance from the get-go. I do want to get to the YouTube comments here because we got Jesus, Papa J, Bobo, Kawachito all lining up, ready to go. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, celebrating a Niners 38-13 victory over the Chicago Bears in week number 14. San Francisco climbs to 6-7 on the season. And let's kick things off in the YouTube chat with Jesus M saying Isaac Guerendo gets taken down too easily. Guerendo, for as great as I think he can be, right? The speed is there. The vision certainly is not there. Sometimes he tries to get to the outside too quick when there's free lanes if he cuts back up in the middle. You can tell he's still learning, getting his feet wet, and you hope the injury isn't too serious. That way he can continue to play more and integrate himself into the offense. Now, once Christian McCaffrey comes back and Jordan Mason comes back, the hope is that they can still find ways next year to implement him in the offense that isn't just, be the kick returner. I think we saw today, and we have seen throughout the year in little short spurts, that Guerendo can give you something else. But to your point, there are times where Guerendo really doesn't utilize his frame. Like, Guerendo's a fast kid, right? But he's thick as an ox. Like, he is strong as can be, but sometimes it feels like he doesn't have the base under him just yet to push piles, despite having gigantic quads and legs. And you're hoping that over time, as he grows as a player and gets more years under his belt, that'll change, and he'll be able to kind of be the player you want him to be as a 4th round running back you picked to, I'm going to assume, eventually be their RB1 in the next, 4 or 5 years, or at least be the RB2 once Mason leaves eventually, if they can't re-sign him. They also say here on the YouTube chat, Jesus says, Guerendo isn't an RB1. He's an RB2, solid RB3, again, taken down too easily. I just think the Niners, like, despite the season being the way it's been, they are actually in a good position in regards to running backs to kind of beat you in every different way. You have CMC, the pass catcher, the one cut back, the guy that you can just ride till the wheels fall off if he's fully healthy. You have Jordan Mason, your power guy, the thunder to Christian McCaffrey's lightning. And then you have Isaac Guerendo, a 4.3 speedster that can catch the ball out of the backfield, that can, be a one-cut guy. And again, he's going to have to be utilized in short stints and short spurts to keep him fresh and, make the looks different for the defense. But ultimately, I don't know how you left this game not pleased what he did. I loved what I saw from Guerendo. Again, there is definitely steps that have to be made. He's not a finished product by any means. He got blown up in pass protection today a couple of times, and I was like, whoa, your body's there, but you are like there is no pushback. It's just, you're putting the body in front of the dude, hoping that's enough. Guerendo, he tries. To give him credit, he tries, but he is just waiting to get hammered by a defensive player. I think it was Jonathan Owens maybe, or somebody else on the Bears defense, one of their linebackers, just laid in him today, laid right through him. And it was just like, ooh, that hurt. Papa J, what's going on in the YouTube chat? Hope you're having great. Let's see. In the YouTube chat, Papa J asks here, with or excuse me, doesn't ask, he says, with running back Isaac Guerendo and Patrick Taylor Jr., they should have been alternating. We would have risked less injuries and always would have had fresh legs down in the backfield. I think that applies to not just today and Isaac Guerendo and Patrick Taylor Jr. I think it applies for the whole season. I know when something works, it's really hard to want to get away from that. That's kind of how Kyle Shanahan is. He's too stubborn sometimes. But today, I think that Shanahan was like, look, we ain't got CMC. We ain't got Jordan Mason. I like Patrick Taylor Jr. enough. He's a fine power back. He doesn't mind pushing piles and getting his head down and getting himself a little dirty here or there. But I have to ride my 4th-round running back this year. He has more of the traits you want in the offense. And ultimately, like Guerendo had, 2 touchdowns today, had a massive catch on one of those kind of blind rail routes they run. And it was like, okay, like you can say there's a playmaker in Isaac Guerendo somewhere. And I think that if he can maintain his health, which obviously we're waiting to hear back on his foot injury, he's in a good position to kind of etch out his role in the offense next year. Replace Elijah Mitchell, let him walk in the offseason. You have Guerendo, you're feeling better about yourself. And I think there's a way where Guerendo could give Shanahan confidence that if somebody else next year, Christian McCaffrey or Jordan Mason, go down with injury, that he's not scared to put Guerendo out there. Or late in games, it's not, oh my God, we can't run the football. No, you're going to have a guy that can. And I think Guerendo's put himself in a place where even in one start, he looked like he belonged. And that's really important for a young player. Sometimes you walk into a game, you're overwhelmed, you're not hitting your cuts, you're not hitting your lanes, and that certainly happened today for a little bit of time. But overall, I thought Guerendo was really good today. You look at his box score. Guerendo finished the day with 15 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a 30-yard run where you just saw the blazing speed. He had 2 catches for 50 yards. Like, in totality, he touched the ball 17 times for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was better than anyone on the team besides George Kittle. Like, Guerendo was a main factor in the win today. He's responsible for 14 points. And again, without him, who knows what would have happened, but he looked really good with 15 carries under his belt. And yes, Jesus, you are correct. The Bears were all, like, I don't know what they were doing defensively. Like, George Kittle was open all day long. They were playing soft zone. Then they played man, tried to blitz too much. When you blitz early, you're leaving Kittle wide open because your linebackers can't cover him. And if you're going to blitz and play zone coverage or play man coverage, like, you're leaving somebody open. And it felt like San Francisco had, we've talked all year long about these guys can't separate. In this game, they didn't have to separate. The Bears were the one doing the separating from them, and it showed in the box score as well. And there were so many big home run hitting plays for this team. I think just before halftime, they had 5 plays of 20-plus yards. That hadn't happened all year for this team. That's how the offense was rolling today. It was seamless. It felt so easy. It was free. I mean, George Kittle, 6 catches, 151 yards on 6 targets. He had multiple 30-yard catches. Jennings, 7 catches, 90 yards. He also had 2 touchdowns. He had a 39-yard catch from Brock Purdy. Like, it was an ultimate, like, hey, we're getting vertical, we're getting horizontal, we're doing screen passes, dump offs, and kudos to Kyle Shanahan for using the Bears' aggressiveness against them, right? If you're going to blitz, fine. Here's screen passes to Kittle and Guerendo and some to Deebo Samuel, who wasn't great today. But, you look at how the offense operated today, and it felt like it was fully operational for the first time maybe since week number 1. And that is like a crazy statement to make. It was really, really, really fun to watch. I didn't see a lot of the issues in regards to the Niners defense in the second half, to be honest with you. Like, the game felt over at that point, and the Niners, albeit weren't playing prevent defense in the second half, you can tell there was this effort to, okay, let's play back a little bit, be aggressive, still make some plays. You saw Hufanga was really good today coming down. But I think the biggest issues for San Francisco's defense in the second half was, one, Their first touchdown was a phenomenal throw and catch by Caleb Williams, Jerome Odunze in the corner of the end zone on Travarius Ward. It was catch, look down, tap your feet. That's just great stuff there. You can't beat that. It's hard to beat that. The coverage wasn't bad at all. Just a great throw and catch by a quarterback and receiver out in Chicago. Meanwhile, Jair Brown continues to struggle. And I think that a game like this, you saw the difference in what a starting caliber safety looks like. And I think Jair Brown can get back to that level that he was last year. I think it just feels like a sophomore slump for him. Sometimes we are quick to accept sophomore slumps from quarterbacks, and quickly we will disregard defensive players that have those. Oh, they stink, they suck, and so forth. And it's like, no, sometimes guys have a bad year for whatever reason. Maybe it's a new system in place. Maybe it's different coaching. Maybe it's injuries around them. Maybe it's they're trying to do too much, or simply they're having a bad year. It happens. Now you hope they can grow from that. And that's the hope with Jair Brown. But in that second half, the Bears' second touchdown on back-to-back plays was Jair Brown busting coverage and not being where he was supposed to be. So I don't think San Francisco's defense was playing soft or letting lanes open, or the Bears were just finding lanes. It was like, no, sometimes personnel is not great. San Francisco was putting in backups, filtering more people, trying to preserve the defense. Hufanga's on a pitch count today on his first game back from the injury. So that's why you saw some of the trickling effect of, okay, guys look more open because of X, Y, and Z. Kawachipto says here, and it's really a great point. It's glaring how little Deebo Samuel brings to the team anymore. First, I want to defend Deebo Samuel. And I don't do that often here. There were a couple of screenplays that I don't think were his fault. There was one where Ben Barch had gotten hurt. I think it was early in the third quarter, maybe late in the second quarter. And Burford just kind of got caught in no man's land. He got out in time, but the play was kind of behind him at that point. And so Deebo was like, where do I go? And it was like a 2 or 3 yard gain for nothing. So that's kind of some context as to why Deebo struggled. But ultimately, again, you go to the box score and you compare what everyone else did compared to what Deebo did, it's staggering. So again, Isaac Guerendo had 17 touches for 128 yards and 2 touchdowns, multiple 20-yard plays, including a 30-yard run and a 27-yard reception. George Kittle, 6 catches, 151 yards, and multiple 30-yard plays. There's the explosiveness. Jauan Jennings, 7 catches, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns, a nearly 40-yard reception in this one. Again, the explosiveness, there is the high numerical value of touch count of 6 catches, 17 touches, 7 catches, and still having the explosiveness. Kittle had, again, incredible, 151 yards, 100 plus of those in the first half. Meanwhile, Deebo Samuel, he had 2 receptions for 22 yards, and he had 5 carries for 13 yards. That's 7 touches in total for 35 yards. He averaged 5 yards a pop. That's not going to cut it. And sometimes, bad blocking here or there is the reason why he's not getting free, but you can tell what Deebo does. It just doesn't really help the team very often. And I think you see this team being in 1st and 10. Now they're in 2nd and 4. Now they're in 2nd and 6 because of a Guerendo run. But once Deebo gets a screen pass or an end round, it's like, oh, it's 2nd and 8. Oh, it's 2nd and 9 because nothing is happening from this. I think his best run was when they faked the kind of little pitch, may have been to Guerendo or maybe it's Patrick Taylor, and it was an inside handoff to Deebo Samuel for 8 yards. Cool, great, awesome. That's perfect. That's what you want. His best catch of the day was a kind of I don't know if it's a deep crosser, but it was across the field where Purdy found him, and Deebo kind of ran back to the football to kind of cut off the defender. And it was like, hey, there's Deebo Samuel. That's great. But when you talk about packing a punch, and I think for an offense that usually packs a massive punch, right? Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, and Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle, and Jauan Jennings, and today Isaac Guerendo. You talk about kind of an aging fighter. That's what Deebo Samuel is. He's an aging fighter that feels like his punches don't hit as hard. They don't land as hard anymore. And he also can't go 9 rounds, 12 rounds. He's kind of a 3-round player, and there's less oomph behind the punches he has. So you're right, Calachipto, that we all like Deebo for who he is and what he's done, but it feels like that he's an aging fighter past his prime, which we've talked a lot about in the recent weeks of, calling him out and the accountability stuff. Matt Miyoko said this morning on his own YouTube channel and on KNBR that he fully expects that Deebo Samuel is going to be back next year. And there's many reasons as to why, but it's really hard to look at the money that he's making and say, yep, your output equals that. It's hard to justify, the contract considering what the player is giving you anymore. And maybe once, next year they get Ayuk and McCaffrey and Mason, everybody back fully healthy, you see that change. And this year we kind of didn't see that for most of the season, and now not the rest of the season either. Deebo Samuel has been a very, underperforming player, if you will. And the offense that used to be reliant on him, it feels like it's forced to get him touches when in reality it runs just fine without him for the most part. But maybe I'm saying too much there and kind of being too harsh, but ultimately it's like that's what it feels like. I was watching the game and I was like, wow, Kittle and Jennings, everyone's crushing it. I feel like every play for Deebo was like 1 to 2 yards, and it shows when you touch the football 7 times and you have 35 yards. Like, that's not going to cut it. Like, that's simply that's not Deebo Samuel. That's an older player that isn't getting it done and not really helping the team much anymore. Another player that really didn't play well, Ricky Pearsall. He almost had that touchdown. It was really close. That was probably Brock's worst throw of the game, where he's got Pearsall lined up, dead to rights, over the middle, lofts that puppy in the air. And for as great as Brock was today, like Brock was precise. He was playing within the game. He was making plays outside of schedules. He was running up in the pocket, evading pressure, doing side angle throws. He was doing all these things. You're like, that is a $65 million quarterback. I want to pay that dude in the offseason because that's how good he can be and how good he was today. Meanwhile, his worst throw of the game was arguably maybe his easiest, not including screen passes, but he had Pearsall like 40 yards down the field wide open, and he'd missed him. Now, there's two folds to this, that Pearsall has to keep running. Like, I get it. You're trying to get yourself back in the offense, and the more you see, the more you learn. And Pearsall hasn't seen that play in the offense, but it's football. This is basic stuff. Don't stop, set your feet, then jump for a ball. No, keep running, then get under the ball. Now, if that's the case and you do your job, maybe the ball's overthrown still and we're sitting back like, well, that's on Brock. In this case, yeah, it's on Brock for the most part, but Pearsall has to keep running. You keep running, that is a walk-in touchdown, and we're all sitting back like, oh, Pearsall's back, baby. That's what he looks like. That's what it's supposed to be. And it's funny because, Pearsall has kind of been a hot topic recently amongst the community saying, like, where is he? Where is he? And a lot of people are talking about, like, get him more involved in the offense, figure things out. Like, why isn't your first round pick seeing the football more? Meanwhile, while all plays aren't the same, you see plays like this, where it's like, you have a lot to learn, Padawan. So you're hoping that you get in the film room, you can teach it, do it again during practice and whatnot. But that's the difference in big games, right? Say you're playing the Rams on Thursday, run the exact same play, and I'm hoping Pearsall hits it, right? That's what you want. That's what you're banking on. Guys that can learn and grow really, really, really quick. So honestly, Joseph says here that great game, but honestly, Purdy's arm is just not strong enough. Too many underthrown balls. The only noticeable underthrown ball that I saw today was the one where Purdy has Kyle Juszczyk, which this may have been his second worst ball of the day, where he has Juszczyk on the left seam with like 2 steps over the cornerback or the safety, whoever it was, the Bears defender. He underthrows him. And it's like, if you lead him That's probably not a touchdown, but it's certainly like a 35, 40-yard gain. And ultimately, did it matter? No. But again, same thing for the Pearsall play. Those plays do matter because you're playing a great team on Thursday, or not a great team, but a tough team on Thursday against the Rams. And in games where you have to win now every single week, because this week, unfortunately, is a wash for your playoff hopes. The Rams won, the Seahawks won. And you don't have the tiebreaker over Seattle. So you're hoping they lose the next 4 weeks or so now, and you can beat the Rams and beat the Dolphins and find a way to hopefully beat the Lions and beat the Cardinals. But you got to make those plays. Like, yes, Purdy's the one throw I can say Purdy undoubtedly underthrew was that one to Kyle Juszczyk. That would have been like an incredible throw, but also is an easy throw where it's like, you got him beat. Just loft that puppy over there, make that play. We've seen Purdy make it over and over again. Like, Purdy will do this incredible stuff sometimes where it's like, he'll run to his left, he'll run to his right, he'll evade pressure, he'll make two guys miss trying to get sacks, and he'll do this like diving sidearm throw, and you're like, whoa, what was that? And then you're like, why'd you miss that one? That one's more important. You got 3 yards on that play that took you 45 seconds to make. That is a 5-step bang drop, and it's there, and it's like, oh, they can just make the little adjustments. This team can be crazy. Papa J says, Sterling, how significant do you think this win is for the psyche of our second-year rookie players? Or our second-year and rookie players? I don't think it's them specifically, but I do think for a team that has been kind of floundering and they've been looking for answers. I think it was Kyle Shanahan said, whether it was yesterday or maybe this morning or whatever it was, like, Brock talked to the team. Other team leaders were like, look, like, we got to turn things up. And I think when people like that ask you to go to war with them, to fight for them, and then those players are the ones that make the play. They step up. They're the ones that go out there and say, look, I got my sword and shield ready. Will you stand with me? And they're the ones going out there making plays. It means something. It matters. So not to get like, talk about Jair Brown or Dominic Pooney or Pearsall or Cowing, but I think this game means a lot for Guerendo if he's healthy next week, which I don't think he'll play, unfortunately, unless it isn't that serious. But I think it's just massive for the team overall. You have been stuck in the mud, in a rut. You've lost 3 games in a row. San Francisco hadn't scored over 20 points in 3 weeks. They scored 38 today. Now, how good are the Bears? Their offense sucks. The defense was questionable today, but they walked into this game with a top 10 defense in football that had kept them in multiple games against the Lions and against the Vikings and against the Packers. Like, this defense had been strong against better offenses all year long, and San Francisco, that didn't have CMC and Mason and Ayuk, ran right through them. They passed right over them consistently. So I think this game, whether San Francisco makes the playoffs or not, this game does, in fact, kind of pick up the morale. You feel better on Monday, okay? You feel confident saying, hey, we had the biggest game of the season on Thursday against the Rams. We can beat them now. Like, we feel pretty confident. They put up 44 points, whatever. Like, we can go and match them toe-to-toe, which Thursday is going to be insane. It'll be, you're nail biting. You're watching every single play like, what is going to happen next? Because, my goodness. I think the name is Retinua? I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. I hope I'm right here. But to answer your question, is it likely that Isaac Guerendo plays on Thursday Night Football? I'm not sure. I don't think he will. Kyle Shanahan said that he wasn't sure of the severity of his foot injury. He thinks it's a foot sprain, but he said there's going to be further testing Monday, tomorrow, to figure out what's actually going on. So we shall see. My opinion is no. That said, is Joe Anaconda, who didn't play today because he hasn't learned the playbook as a whole yet, maybe we see him explode for a big game, or Patrick Taylor Jr. has his breakout in week 15 of the NFL season this year. You never know, but I certainly hope Guerendo can play. Today you saw what he can do against a pretty good Bears defense that ultimately isn't great against the run, but he was doing things to open up the passing game as well. So I hope he does, but I'm not exactly sure. Bobo says here, going back to Deebo Samuel, that the wide back plays are starting to look ridiculous and useless. What if I told you they have been that way for a year and a half now? Yeah, $30 million punt returner. Again, I love Deebo, but it's just not worth it sometimes, man. Like, it really is just not worth it. He's not been great. And thankfully, as Bobo points out here, Greenlaw might come back. So maybe you don't have to watch Devondre Campbell. I'm sure he'll be on a pitch count in some way. I'm hoping that they're smart enough to not play Devondre Campbell, who I think actually is pretty good in this game, but to not play Devondre Campbell. And they can play D. Winters and Dre Greenlaw, unless they give Greenlaw Winters his snaps, which would suck because Winters was pretty good in this game, at least early. He was flying around making plays. Like, the Niners really started this game off hot. Like, when I was in my notes, I wanted to begin the show saying, what a start for San Francisco. Because, again, the first drive of the game for San Francisco, they march 5 plays, 70 yards, all the way downfield. They score 7 points. You're like, okay, like, that was really easy. The next play, the kick return for the Bears, Winters makes a great tackle and pins Chicago at the 22 or 23 yard line. And you're like, well, that's weird. The offense is playing well. Special teams isn't making mistakes. What's the defense going to do? They get a 3 and out. And you're like, oh my God. And that leads to a dominating performance by San Francisco's team as a whole. In the first half, San Francisco had 319 first half yards, the most by any team this year in the first half. The Bears, and listen to this, had 1 first down and just 4 total offensive yards to begin this game. It isn't crazy. It was incredible. It was insane. It was crazy. Crazy. And yes, Calachito, Pearsall didn't cut the post or run the post. He cut across open space, Brock through the post. So yes, miscommunication. That's why Brock was like, darn, on the field. And you hope that, you get in the film room, the meetings come up, that maybe on Thursday, run the same play and say, you know what, let's hit it this time. And maybe it makes a big difference. Maybe it makes a big difference. Papa J asks here, what do I think of Yetur Gross-Matos? So the defense as a whole, let's dive into that first, because the defense, I thought, was phenomenal today. Now, obviously, you can have some qualms here or there late in the game, fourth quarter. There were some plays you're like, ooh, what's going to happen here? They got kind of lucky on the fumble that Caleb Williams had, where he threw it, but then tried to tuck it in, but then threw it backwards, so it is a fumble, and you're like, we'll take it, I guess. But they held the Bears. They had 68 rushing yards. They had 94 passing yards during the game. They sacked Caleb Williams 7 times. I think the Bears' offensive line, to be fair to them, and to not give San Francisco too much credit, because, well, we can't always be too nice. The Bears' offensive line sucks. It's pretty bad. Caleb has been running for his life for a lot of the season. Now, some of that's his own fault, holding the ball for too long and getting sacked. But you look at the game, the Niners' offensive line isn't great either, and the Bears' defense is pretty good. Purdy got sacked once. Caleb got sacked 7 times. And so, I think it was four of the first 4 sacks they had were all on third downs. It was drive-killing sacks. Leonard Floyd was, I thought, phenomenal in this game. You have to kind of play who's in front of you, so make of that what you will. But there was plays where Floyd he looked like it was week 1, where he was just fresh. He felt great, and he was just pushing the tackles back and forth. He was pushing the left tackles into Williams. On the very next play, he was getting third down sacks. He looked incredible today. I don't know what his PFF score will say, but he had 2 sacks on the day. He had 2 tackles for losses. I think this was, when you talk about not having Nick Bosa and having to step up. Now, Are you playing the best opposition? No, you're not, to be fair. But you still got to play, got to execute. This team has lost to or been close to losing against worse teams or, blown games. They should have won and played a lot worse. This is the most cohesive they've looked all year long. They were executing stunts correctly. They were getting pressure all day. Gross-Matos had 4 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for losses. Like, if you're handing out game balls, Gross-Matos undoubtedly gets one. He was awesome today. Malik Collins had a sack. It was just, it was honestly awesome. Jalen Graham had a tackle for loss in this one. And you're like, okay, like everyone's getting involved today. Clea Davis had a tackle. Like, this team, for as bad as they are, which they're pretty bad, they're 6-7 this year. This was their best game. If I had to give one defensive player a game ball and one offensive player a game ball, I think defense, you kind of hard not to give it to Gross-Matos. You get 3 sacks in a game and 3 tackles for losses. Okay, that's like Pro Bowl level play if you can do it for the next 17 games, whatever it is. Obviously it's not going to happen, but I think Gross-Matos has to get one. This is a stellar day performance. I thought if you want to give kind of like a heartfelt one of like, oh, this means something, I think Talanoa Hufanga was really good today. I know we've talked about bringing him back. Would he come back? And he kind of, I questioned his future for sure. And I still do. But I think today, again, you saw the difference in what Jair Brown looks like and what Talanoa Hufanga looks like. Now, Hufanga's more fresh, not as beaten up, albeit he has the wrist injury. But he's flying around making plays. Like, if you want to give like a more emotional game ball, I think Hufanga gets one for sure. On offense, there's a lot to choose from. Like, Jauan Jennings continues to be awesome, but I think at that point, like, you really have to give the game ball to George Kittle. George Kittle, 6 catches, 151 yards, whatever it was in the day. What was it? Yeah, six catches, 151 yards, and felt like it was just every single play was a massive 30-yard play, 25-yard play from Kittle. He ends the game becoming the 3rd tight end in NFL history with 500 receptions and 7,000 receiving yards. That's game ball worthy to me. George Kittle was awesome. Hufanga was awesome. Jauan Jennings was awesome. Like, Kittle is making history. He is this franchise's best tight end and has been for the last year, if not more. So yeah, I think game balls but you can also say Brock Purdy. Like, Brock Purdy looked like a superstar today. Like, Brock Purdy was nearly perfect on the day. And he even fought through a weird neck injury or whatever it was when he got hurt because, was it Darrell Taylor? Like, jumped up and couldn't stop himself, but then smacked Purdy in the head and yanked his head back. And it was like, what the heck's going on? Didn't know I was in Pilates class. We're doing downward dog or the snake, whatever we're doing. Man, okay. But he fought through that and he played well and he came back. And I know it was kind of towards the end of the game there, but this is the best both sides of the ball have looked all year. Now, what does that matter? I don't know. But in my notes, I have notable throws that Brock Purdy made today. And when you look at what he's done or did today, I'm going to list every single notable throw he had. Stick with me here. Now, there's some screen passes involved, but there was a play for first drive of the football game, right? He was 4 for 4, 70 yards. He has all the yards on the drive, the 1 touchdown. On the first drive of the game, a 33-yard screen pass that the Bears were kind of being aggressive. They're blitzing early. They blitz. He evades the pressure, just pops it to Kittle. Boom, 33 yards later. Okay, that's great. Later in the game, the 20-yard crosser, Deebo Samuel. He had there were so many play fakes today and play actions, and there were zone reads, and there was end arounds and jet sweeps. It was where has this creativity been all year long from Kyle Shanahan? And thankfully, you saw this is what happens when you can actually execute your offense. This to me shows that Shanahan's offense isn't broken. Now, You play better teams, better personnel. Obviously, things change here or there, but this is a game that is an example of Shanahan's offense. While there being issues and certainly inconsistencies, like this is what it can still look like when they're kind of all on full cylinders. But back to Brock Purdy, play fake, found Kittle for 31 yards downfield. That freaking Isaac Guerendo just flip of the wrist, just blindly off the back foot, hits the he hits the rail route where he just like hikes it, looks up, back foot, flips it, and you're just like, he's running in the sun like, I can't find the ball. I can't find the ball. And he like dives or slides for it for 27 yards. Like that is a throw it up, and you're just like praying, like, please God, make sure he catches the football. That's a great play. It happened against the Buccaneers and Christian McCaffrey. Like they use that play a lot, and it works almost every single time. It is a play of faith, and Guerendo certainly executed it alongside Brock Purdy. On the drive that made it 21-0 for San Francisco, or at least in their favor, it's 2nd and 13. They do a moving screen. They snap the football. Purdy runs up in the pocket, finds Kittle. He goes 23 yards for a first down. On the same drive, it's 3rd and 7. Purdy finds Kittle over the middle for 18 yards and some yak, and you're like, wow, these are plays against other defenses that we just don't make. These are drive-ending plays. These are drops. There's a holding call. There's a false start, and you're just like, oh, drive's over with. No, in this one, it was everything that could go right was going right for San Francisco. Then later in the drive, it's 3rd and 8. Is the drive going to stall? Purdy stands in the pocket, faced with pressure, gets hammered, gets laid out as hard as you possibly can, essentially, and he finds Jennings for a first down. Then later finds Jennings for a second touchdown where he dives in the end zone, and you're like, wow, we are cooking today. Like that's, what was that? That was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 notable throws I found from Brock Purdy today. And there's still room to improve. Like, I get it. We're late in the season. Week 15's on Thursday. And, what ifs and could have beens don't matter. But when you talk about you want to pay a guy $65 million, he didn't beat a bad defense today. Like, that should not be what the conversation is. The Bears walked in with a really good defense. Now, I have no idea what their game plan was or whatnot, but Brock Purdy diced up a really good Bears defense en route to a win today at Levi Stadium. In my notes, again, I have we talked about Guerendo. Like, his speed is so crazy. Like, there was that big 30-yard run he had where it looked like he couldn't get to the outside. And somehow he finds a small crease to get there, and it was just, as soon as he found space, it was just, he was gone. And you're like, whoa, he covered 25 plus yards and it felt like a second. Like, that's how fast this kid can run. And I hope he can stay healthy. And we talked about George Kittle, talked about Jauan Jennings. Can we talk about Jauan Jennings somehow always being able to find the football? Like, Brock today, with pressure in his face, tries to like sidearm the throw to Jauan around the defender. He does. The ball gets tipped up in the air, and we're all probably thinking, oh, interception, here we go. They're going to tie the football game up. And somehow Jauan, with a guy on his back and a guy in front of him that should get the football and pick it off, somehow brings it down. And you're like, okay, like, how did that happen? Where are the physics involved there? But Jauan's just so good. Like, Jauan is going to be and walk into next year as this team's number 2 receiver, if not number 1 receiver. Whether Deebo's here or Pearsall's here, or even if Ayuk's healthy, he's this team's number 2 receiver next year. If you want to involve George Kittle, fine, but like, you talk about just receivers, if Ayuk's healthy, he's the 1. Jennings is the 2. Like, Jennings has made himself a much more important piece of the offense this year than Deebo Samuel. And you're hoping that Cowing and Pearsall can pick things up in the future, but ultimately it's like, this is a Jauan Jennings world, and we're living in it. And it's just awesome. He brings everything down. It's like he's I always go back to that scene in Little Giants where, I'm forgetting the kid's name, but they're like, you drop everything. Can you catch the football? And he goes out there and he puts the stick on his hands and he's like, Whoa. And it's like all over his hands. It looks like he's doing the cheese pull with the stickum. Jauan Jennings has like lifelong stickum on his hands. Every ball he touches essentially gets caught. It is insane what he can do on the football field. He's incredible. I wouldn't go as far as Randy Moss, Papa J, but he certainly brings things down. What do you got here for me, Papa J? Sterling, what grade would you give Kyle and Nick Sorensen today? I'm not going to grade Nick Sorensen overly fairly. That's a terrible way to say that, but here we are. I think that Sorensen deserves a B. I think that's fine. I think he did a great job mixing in the blitzes. I thought the defense today, they highlighted it so much on the broadcast, passing plays off, playing together, like communicating. And that does go on coaching. Like that goes in like, hey, we got to talk, kind of stuff. And the personnel obviously deserves flowers too, but this team was passing off coverages the correct way. Rarely did you ever see a player wide open. Rarely did you see, like, in that first half, it felt like it was a lockdown, shutdown kind of offense day. Again, they allowed 4 yards on offense for one whole half. That didn't happen all year long. Now, again, it's the Bears offense. They're not playing well, but it's an offense that still has the first overall pick this year. Keenan Allen, who may be a future Hall of Famer someday. You have DJ Moore, one of the more exciting receivers in football. Cole Kmet's an okay tight end. And you have Rome Odunze, this year's number 9 overall pick. It's like, it's not an offense full of scrubs. The personnel is fine. The offensive line's not great, but they have weapons to make things happen. There was nobody open today. I can almost guarantee you, if you watch the tape, almost all of, if not, I don't know, 5 of the 7 sacks the Niners had today were covered sacks. Nobody's open. Caleb has nowhere to go with the football and is like, what do I do? What do I do? And then he can't scramble because the pocket collapses and he gets sacked. So I thought coverage was great today. Again, I would give Nick Sorensen probably a B, maybe a B+. But for Kyle Shanahan, I know we tend to give him more credit because he's the head coach and the play caller. I thought it was great today. I thought whenever, like, we've come to know Kyle as like, okay, he's going to drop this amazing play at the right time. And that hasn't happened this year. And I think that today it felt like whenever San Francisco needed the big play, when they had to have a first down, when they needed to gain, it's 2nd and 13, give me 10 yards, make it an easy 3rd down attempt. They did it. Kyle was aggressive on 4th downs today, a few quarterback sneaks late in the game where they're marching downfield. It's 31 to, I think, 13 at the time. And they go to kick a field goal. Kyle says, nope, calls timeout, puts Purdy back out there, hand off to Taylor Jr., gets the first down. It leads to 7 points later. And you're like, yes, like you can feel like Kyle finally felt like he was in a groove for the first time this year. And, sometimes there's so many variables as to why it does and doesn't happen. But, Kyle, I thought was great. Like, you talk about this team needing a win, needing a morale booster, needing their head coach to figure things, out. He did. And the hope is that you carry this over with the confidence you gained, how you played, the morale you've gained. You start feeling yourself some money. You bring the boombox out on Thursday Night Football. You have the crowd in front of you. You're feeling good. You bounce back. Okay, here we go. Here's round 2. Here's another must-win game to get to 7-7 and get equal to with the Rams and get the tiebreaker over them if they're going to be in first place at the end of the year. You have a game where your head coach is like, oh, now I kind of feel good. Now I'm in the rhythm. Now, people don't realize that, play calling, yes, can be very cut and dry. I call this because the defense calls this. Now I do this because the defense says that. And it can be that way. But Shanahan has proven over time that he also has to get himself in rhythm. And I think in this game from the get-go, it was like they knew they were going to win. Now the Bears have won 4 games, but San Francisco has won 5 games. It wasn't like it was a given the way they played all year. So you can tell San Francisco walked onto the football field for one of the first times this year from the jump, feeling like and playing like. It exuded into confidence like, we're going to win. We're better than you. We know we're better than you. And that permeates down from the head coach. Like, hey, I have a kick-ass game plan and we're going to execute it and we're going to win. That's what felt like happened today for the San Francisco 49ers. Santa Clara Fella says here in the YouTube chat, good to be back in the win column, but we have our work cut out. We're going to need to kick the Rams' asses and then hope for some help topping Seattle. Yes, you are correct. Unfortunately, today, the Niners didn't get that help. But you beat the Rams on Thursday, then inevitably, you beat the Cardinals late in the year. Hopefully that doesn't matter much, but it might. You beat the Dolphins. It's not like too many games separate you. You're 2 games behind Seattle now. Yeah, you need some help ultimately, but you got 4 games left. If they lose 3 games and you win 3 games, you can set up the next, you can set up a week 18 kind of winner take all. Unfortunately, San Francisco has the Lions in there, and you're like, oh, like, why couldn't we play the Lions today and the Bears next week or the Bears later in the year? But that's what happens when you don't play well all year long. When you lose games, you're supposed to win. And yeah, so you need some help for sure. But I do think that San Francisco, like, are the Niners in my mind going to make the playoffs? No. Had they beaten Seattle, though, a couple weeks back, I think they could. I think they would, in fact. If they beat like that game, it was the most pivotal loss of the season. Like, you win that game, you're 1 game behind Seattle right now. You hold the tiebreaker, and you have a 4-game stretch where you have what it was the Rams, the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Cardinals, where it's like, hey, we beat the Rams, we can lose the Lions, beat the Cardinals and Dolphins, like we're in, barring something crazy happening like the Rams winning out or whatever. But like that game crushed their season. Like you can feel it. It was like we have them. Oh. And when you lose a game like that, and then your quarterback gets hurt, you're playing in the winter in the snow in the frozen tundra of Buffalo, like you're not going to win. And so the odds are stacked against them for sure. But in a year like this, the one thing you want to see, and it's unfortunately means nothing, but you want to see young players have grit. We talked about going into the week that I want to see young players play. Guerendo was great to watch today. Mustafa was so fun to watch today. D. Winters is making plays early in this game. Even Gross-Matos is pretty young. I know he isn't a spring chicken, but he's a young player that hasn't really gotten much playing time due to injury and playing with the Panthers the past few years. But Lenore is still young, albeit he's more established. Bernardo Green was really good today. Like, you saw young players making plays still. And, like, you want to see young players not give up, continue to fight, and play for the veteran guys on the roster. So, even if San Francisco doesn't go to the playoffs, which feels like a long shot, like, you want to see them give the Rams a run for their money. You want to see, them fight the Lions till the end. You want to see them beat the Cardinals and spoil their season. Or, heck, beat the Lions. You never know what can happen in the NFC. But I think the Lions will want to crush San Francisco. But I digress. They need help for sure, but it's not like it's too far-fetched to believe they can make it. It's just really hard to do so. And today would have gone a long way into doing that had the Rams and Seahawks both lost. But here we are. And yes, the Rams did almost pull a Shanahan versus the Bills. What was Sean McDermott thinking? Calling a quarterback sneak and then calling a timeout. They would have got the ball back with like 45 seconds. Like, what? And needing a field goal. Like, what are we doing? I don't know. Yes, the Seahawks also still have to beat the Vikings and the Packers, so a lot can change. I'll tell you this. If the Niners can beat the Rams next week, that is the next like massive pivotal game. Yes, the Dolphins are important because you got to win, and the Lions are NFC, and you got to win that game. But like, you beat the Rams, it opens every single door because then you're equal with them record-wise, and you have the tiebreaker over them. And if the Seahawks lose, you're 1 game behind them. So it is a fight to the finish, and San Francisco has at least one more like crucial gotta have it game, and that's on Thursday Night Football at home. So you better be out there if you want to see that game and support your Niners. And if you do, you can use our promo code 49ers Access. Oh, what a segue at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Get there. Levi Stadium. Save yourself some money. Use the promo code. I'm helping you out, folks. Go out there and support your team in the way you know how. Let my $20 at least pay for your parking or like the $19 beers they sell at Levi Stadium. It's asinine, but it's free money. You might as well take it. Papa J asks here, we have Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, Isaac Guerendo, Patrick Taylor Jr., and Elijah Mitchell. Who do you keep? Well, it's pretty easy. CMC staying, Jordan Mason staying, Isaac Guerendo staying. I don't know if Elijah Mitchell's a free agent after this year. Let's say he is. Goodbye. Like, he's never healthy. Like, this team doesn't have room for running backs that can stay healthy. Like, Christian McCaffrey's been hurt. Jordan Mason's been hurt. Guerendo was hurt, then wasn't hurt. Now he's hurt again. Taylor's the only guy who hasn't been healthy, and he's been on the practice squad for the majority of the season. So, you just tell Mitchell goodbye. I think it makes sense. Like, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Mitchell will either go to the Dolphins, the Vikings, or the Saints. Yep, that'll happen. Maybe the off chance the Texans too. Like, those are the 4 teams where I'm like, it makes sense for Elijah Mitchell, but I would not be shocked to watch him go to the Saints or the Vikings. Both those teams, Kamara and Kendra Miller, and they have and Aaron Jones. Like, the Vikings need that backup. Elijah Mitchell. Mitchell to the Cowboys, Cowachipto said. I can see that too. Rico Dowdle and Elijah Mitchell. It wouldn't be that bad if they can both stay healthy. For another 4th rounder. Maybe. You never know. You never know. Papa J asks here, in your opinion, does Juszczyk come back next year? Yes. Yes. I know he took the discounted contract this year, the pay cut, and it bothered him as it should. But he's coming back. I don't think he's had a great season, but nobody else really has. But he'll be back. You're not finding another fullback that can do what Kyle Juszczyk can do unless you're acquiring Patrick Ricard from the Ravens, or you're getting the guy from, I'm forgetting his name right now, but you're getting, I think it's Alex Singleton. Is that his name? From the Dolphins. Like, Juszczyk's not going anywhere. They'll pay him. They respect him too much. He is their number 2 tight end, essentially. He's kind of their quasi fullback, tight end, running back. Like, do whatever you have to do, kind of the Swiss Army knife of the team. So, like, he's not going anywhere. But yeah, you bring him back. What else do I have in my notes here before we say deuces and say goodbye? Ben Barch got hurt. That sucks. Hope he can stay healthy. He got carted off the field, or he walked to the sideline, was like, my ankle hurts, and then was like, I got to go to the locker room. That's an ankle. I think it's a high ankle sprain for him, which sucks. He's probably out for the rest of the year, unfortunately. So Spencer Burford, come on down. Which I'm not too upset about. Obviously, I want Barch to be healthy for his own sake and whatnot. But, I think that I really want to see what Spencer Burford can do. I think 5th round pick. He started for a while. He wasn't that bad. He felt like an answer at right guard for a little bit, but now it's kind of been like, oh, Spencer Burford. And he got moved around and stuff. Like, I want to see what he can do. Unfortunately, they're probably going to get Aaron Banks back next week, so the loss of Barch is not too big of a deal. But Barch and Burford arguably have been playing better than Banks this year in their short times on the field. So, like, see what you got. Banks, to me, is a solidified, you're gone when it's all said and done. So time will tell. But The San Francisco 49ers win 38-13. Brock Purdy has his highest quarterback rating of the season, 145.5. George Kittle out there breaking records once again. The third tight end in NFL history with 500 plus receptions and 7,000 plus yards. He is the greatest tight end in Niners history and one of the greatest tight ends of all time in the National Football League. Isaac Guerendo popped off today, over 120 yards from scrimmage, couple touchdowns. Jauan Jennings continues to be the dog that he is, in the offensive line didn't play that bad. I think for the first time all year, I didn't say, get Spencer Burford off this team. When I'm not yelling that, I'm a much happier person. So thumbs up to Jake Brendel. Like, my goodness. Thumbs up, brother. I didn't say I wanted you gone today. That is a plus for me. I can go back to my wife and not cry at night being like, honey, our center is so bad. I wish he wasn't on the team. I can be happy at night now and go to bed and feel good about myself when the night's over with and say, wow, the Niners won. The offensive line played pretty well. Brock Purdy was dotting passes left and right. And somehow the San Francisco 49ers find themselves still in the playoff hunt. They climb to 6-7 on the year, one game under 500, gearing up for a Thursday night football matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. It is a must-win. It is a have to win. It is a win, or you essentially go home this Thursday night at Levi Stadium. If you want to go see that game live, use our promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Maybe, just maybe, they get Trent Williams back. Maybe Nick Bosa comes back. Maybe you see a pretty close to healthy San Francisco 49ers team gear up for a pivotal must-win game against the Los Angeles Rams. Hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And if you're waiting to hear injury reports, your latest updates on your favorite teams, go to sportsspyder.com. Podcast, YouTube videos, news, latest articles about your favorite teams all in one place just for you, organized by MLB, NBA, NFL, and again, by your favorite teams. Click that link down below or go to sportsspyder.com. My name is Sterling Bennett. Thank you to Papa J, Kawachipto, Santa Clara Fella, Bobo, you were in here for a short period of time. Hope you're having a great night. Jesus, Tommy Huxley, many, many more on the YouTube chat. Joseph Ernberg, Jesus M, Jason PDSI at the very top says, Jesus Christ, how many Niner content creators are there? There's a lot, but I appreciate you stopping here. It means a lot. If you could, leave a like on the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating on the audio podcasting platforms. And again, as always, after a Niners 38-13 victory over the Chicago Bears in Week 14 of the 2024 NFL season, I bid you adieu. And as always, stay faithful.